Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Triple Threat Show. We are your hosts, Jeremy Lapidus, Mehrob Fatemi, Ryan Burns, and Nolan Jambor. Welcome in, everybody. We, of course, have our fantasy football extravaganza today. Fantasy football right around the corner. We're going to go over everything you need to know. That is every single sleeper, every player that you need to target, and much more. But before we do, there is a lot to get to around the NFL. The NFL has been insane today. The day before cuts, right before people find out if they make the roster or not, trades, extensions, big signings, and more. And we'll start in our nation's capital, Mehrob. Terry McLaurin, the saga finally done. The second straight year the offseason has been dominated by a wide receiver looking to get his money. This one, of course, a little bit different than the Brandon Ayuk situation. It always felt, at least to me, that Terry McLaurin was going to be a Washington Commander, whether that be done through, cordial means or not. Right? They were able to get this done at the 11th hour, right before cut day, 10 days till NFL football. 3 years, $96 million. I've heard some people on Twitter and across the internet saying that's an overpay. My first reaction to this was that's a good contract. I know people might think Terry McLaurin at the age of nearly 30 years old, he'll turn 30 right after week 1, right? He's a little bit older than your typical receiver getting big money, but it's not just the fact that he's been a very good member of this Washington Commanders team. He's been through all the name changes, dealt with all the ownership and all that, but also he's a fringe top 10 wide receiver. He's better than DK Metcalf in my mind. He's better than Courtland Sutton, which people were comparing him to. This is a contract that I think is fully worth it. We'll have to see what the guarantees are. They still have not come out. But 3-year extension worth $96 million, $30 million signing bonus matches DK Metcalf's. What took so long? What's your first read on this deal?
It's a crazy deal. I mean, this is something that has been in the works for a while now. We've heard so much happen from Terry McLaurin saying he's had no contact with the Washington organization. He's been on live mic saying that he wants to stay in Washington, that he's built his family and his entire foundation in terms of growing up past college in Washington. He's built his life there and he wants to stay there. He said that live on him in press conferences. I'm just happy that to finally see it. I think not only is Terry McLaurin happy, I think Jaden Daniels is happy to see it. I think Deebo Samuel is ready to see it. It's going to take pressure off of Deebo Samuel on the other side of the field. It's going to give Jaden Daniels an extra outlet as a deep threat down the field, which is so important for this offense. So I think it's really important. I'm really happy to see Terry McLaurin sign a big time deal with this team. And I'm not even looking at the numbers too much, because if we're really looking at it, it's probably going to be somewhere around 26, $27 million a year, and then some extra bonuses on the side.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see about exactly how much that money's going to be. But I think you brought up a really interesting point there, Mehrob, and that's the fact that he is the difference maker on this team. All these guys are very happy to see that he's there, Nolan. I think he's the difference, Terry McLaurin, between this Washington team being a wild card contender / fringe division contender in the NFC East into a Super Bowl contender. That is the difference it makes. It makes him go from an 8 or 9 win team to a 10 or an 11 win team. What kind of impact is Terry McLaurin being there officially for this season going to mean for the Commanders?
It's going to mean the absolute world. Last year he comes in, you get your quarterback like Jaden Daniels coming in, rookie, and you have, your technically vet, even though he hasn't been in the league that long, but you have Terry McLaurin there. And this duo was absolutely lethal last year, and that was the first year they were together. They didn't have that team. They had, team chemistry, but you don't have the best team chemistry there with your first year. Second year going on, that's when it really begins to build trust. We saw Daniels feeding Terry McLaurin a lot last year, and those numbers are only going to go up this year with them becoming such close teammates, friends on the field, off the field. They are like two peas in a pod. They just always have each other's backs. Terry McLaurin is always getting open, and Jane Daniels is always managing to find him downfield. It's literally just a perfect scenario. The only reason I think he wasn't, going to go back there, I think he would have been asking for too much money. But he's there in Washington. He's there to stay, and he's there. He's going to be the number one guy on that team again. he is going to possibly lead them, I think, to an NFC East title. I think they can maybe outperform the Eagles. Maybe. We'll see after last year's NFC championship game, and questionable take, but I think they can, make some arrangements. They can, make adjustments, and they can be a contender again. And maybe not only the NFC East, maybe just an NFC first seed, team. They are a talented enough team on both sides of the ball to get it done. And I think this year they are going to be not only better than last year, but I think they're going to be a serious contender to win the Super Bowl this year with this new, finalized signing for Jeremy McLaurin.
What's your thoughts on this, Ryan?
I'm excited to see him stay in Washington. I mean, he did really great last year supporting Daniels in his rookie year. I mean, he caught 13 touchdowns, over 1,000 yards. I mean, what more can you ask for Terry? I'm glad he got to stay in with the Commanders for another year, and we'll see how he does this year supporting Daniels' sophomore season. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to take a look at here, but he wasn't the only major piece that got moved, or I guess got his problem solved this afternoon. Trey Hendrickson, the other big one that I really did not think was going to get done, signs a 1-year deal to stay with the Bengals. Now, that is a deal that's going to let him hit free agency after this season in 2026. 1 year, right around $30 million for him. That's an underpay. This is the guy that led the league in sacks last year, has been near the top of the league in sacks for the last couple of seasons. There's a lot to like out of Trey Hendrickson here. He now gets 1 season with the Bengals. How much of a difference maker is he, Ryan, for this Bengals defense? Is he going to make them competent? We saw how it was last year, and it's a scary thought that they might have gone this season without him. What is this going to mean?
Yeah, this is huge. I mean, we saw how much the Bengals struggled on defense last year. Keeping these stars is an absolute must, so it's really great to see him sign for another year. Now, what that means after that, we do not know, but if he puts up another great performance, we will only have to see and hope all goes well for the Bengals this year.
Yeah. Mehrob, I know this was big news for you. Brought it right to the group chat. All capitals here. Trey Hendrickson got done. Talk to me a little bit about your thoughts here.
I mean, I'm right there with you, Jeremy. I was not expecting this to happen with everything that's happened with the Bengals. I mean, with this deal now, I know it's only a 1-year deal, but do the Bengals have any more money for anything? Say somebody gets hurt and they need to pick somebody up off the waivers. Are they going to be able to do that? With the amount of money that they have spread across that offense, now they're paying Trey Hendrickson big-time money, even though it's just a 1-year deal. I just don't know where they're getting this money from. They're growing it on trees. They're printing it from the printer press. That printer press must be red hot by the time it's coming out right now. But, I mean, the Bengals definitely needed to make this move. Their defense you were treading the line of scoring 40 points and giving up 40 points every single game. So, looking at this was a big-time move. I'm really happy that they did it. And, I mean, the Bengals could be back on the defensive end of the ball.
What you got, Nolan?
Yeah, I mean, them bringing back, Trey Hendrickson was honestly, we all knew it was going to happen. They couldn't let their star on defense, their best defensive player, walk away. A 1-year, $14 million is, it's going to keep him there for the year. But after this, he's going to want to be signed again. If he doesn't get paid more than this next year, he's going to leave, and we all know that. But this, them bringing him back was a must. Obviously, they finally brought back Shamar Stewart. They finally brought him back. So, and he's not even listed as, starting the end right now. I mean, their D-line was their strong point with Trey Hendrickson. Without him, they'd be horrible. But even like their back seven, linebackers, corners, safeties, they're just not that good. I mean, respectfully, they're in the NFL. They're great players. But compared to other teams and compared to the very strong AFC North that they're in with elite offenses, with Baltimore, possibly the Browns, but I mean, their defense just has a lot of room to work. And them finally bringing back Trey Hendrickson, who is, their cornerstone of their defense, their star guy, that's going to help a lot. They're not going to – you're still going to be giving up a lot of points. One guy on the D-line can't help you prevent, 40 points a game like they gave up a lot last year. But it can put more pressure on the quarterback to make them, draw out, make shorter plays, make them run a lot more. Because their run D is solid. They have a solid run D. Their linebackers can pick up on that pretty well. They have been for the past few years. The problem is their pass D. If they don't have any defensive line pressure, they're giving up 40 points a game like they have been the past few years. So them bringing Trey Hendrickson back was, the best thing could have happened for him. And thank God they did, because they would be respectfully, just horrible without him.
Yeah, no, bringing Trey Hendrickson back was definitely a must. Like you said, getting pressure on a quarterback, Nolan, that's where you need, that's really helps out the secondary more than anything. It's the biggest determining factor on how good your team is. You build through the trenches. That is how it gets done. But we've talked ad nauseum this offseason about these holdout/hold-ins, and now there's just one. That leaves us with the big ugly one going on in Micah Parsons, one that I thought was as simple as any contract negotiation should be. You have one of, if not the best defensive player in all of the NFL, young, wanting to re-sign with you. Just give him the money. This is what Jerry wants, though. He wants it to be a reality TV show. Bring the eyes down to America's team in Dallas. He's let it go as long as it possibly can. This is a contract that needs to get done before the season. How much longer, Mehrob, are we going to have to wait? Or is this something that's really going to get ugly?
I think it's going to get uglier before it gets better. I mean, we saw Micah Parsons before the preseason game, their last preseason game, walking in, eating nachos in full sweats. Shows up, is laying on a massage, not a massage table, but just like a training table, just laying down during the game. If you go to his social medias, he doesn't have Dallas's name anywhere across his social medias anymore. I mean, he's voiced his opinions about how upset he is with Jerry Jones, how he feels like he's not being treated properly, and he thinks he thinks he's going to be the best. He's worth the money of the best linebacker or defensive end in the NFL. Is that arguably so? Yes, I'd agree. But I mean, it's up to Jerry Jones. He's the guy that pays out the money. He's the general manager. He's the owner. He's the guy that runs the show in Dallas. He's done this with everyone. He's done this with Dak Prescott. He did this with Ezekiel Elliott. He did this years ago with Emmitt Smith, the running back. Across the board, I mean, this is something that we see time and time again. I'm just not shocked that it's happening once again with Micah Parsons.
I mean, we saw this tweet, or I saw this tweet earlier. It was saying how the Dallas Cowboys are just a glamorized version of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and honestly, I couldn't agree more. The way Jerry Jones runs that organization, it's like a clown. He just doesn't like. It's like you said. He likes to make it like a drama reality TV show. He just runs it however he wants to bring in the most money. Which is fair. If he can bring in money just through like random things, he'll do it. That's how he is. But when you don't want to pay possibly the best linebacker in the NFL because you want to get more clicks, get more views, get more people to buy your merch, you just have no reason to be running an NFL organization, not one as historic as the Cowboys. And honestly, the Cowboys can be, they are quote unquote America's team because, Dallas Stars, all that, it's just because Dallas. But the way he's been treating them, I mean, like you said, he's just not running it properly. He needs to sign Micah Parsons. It's like Bengals and Trey Hendrickson. It is a must sign. The Dallas defense is just not nearly good enough to compete in a very competitive NFC East without a guy like Micah Parsons on your line. It's just, they're a good defense. Their offense is solid. Their defense is good. Without Micah Parsons, it's just not nearly enough to compete in that division. So they must sign him. It's just a must.
Yeah, it's definitely getting uglier, which is, I guess, just how it goes with the Cowboys. I still fully expect this deal to get done, Ryan. Am I insane for that? I think this is something that Jerry Jones is just waiting until the day before the game. So like September 3rd, I think this gets done.
I mean, it's definitely not crazy to say this. I'm going to reiterate what the other gentlemen have said. I mean, realistically, only 10 days remain until they play the Eagles. Really, this has to get done sooner than later. Parsons has to get some sort of work in with the team. I know he's a very talented player, but you got to get your stars going eventually. And just holding back is not going to make anything better. I mean, you're playing a division rival, former Super Bowl champion. It has to get done. He has to be there, be playing week 1. And, I mean, if it takes until the last day, so be it. But I really don't think that's smart from the Cowboys' organizational standpoint.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you, Ryan. There's a lot to take a look at, but I think this gets done. We'll have to see, because otherwise, a guy I think that especially if he's angry, wins depoy this year, is not coming back to the Cowboys if it doesn't get done before the start of this season, when the first kickoff takes place on Thursday, September 4th. Last big piece of news from around the NFL today. How about the Raiders? They got active, they got busy. Couple pieces of news coming out of Vegas. First of all, the wide receiver room. They got a lot coming out of there. Jakobi Meyers, their wide receiver one, wants a raise. Nothing's coming of that. And I don't necessarily disagree with them, but I think he might be one of the more underrated players in the entirety of the NFL. What he's able to do as not just a wideout, but as a run blocker, the way that he plays team football, he deserves a little bit of a raise. But Jakobi Meyers asked for a trade. They immediately go and bring Amari Cooper back on a 1-year deal. And then they bring in Kenny Pickett to play backup quarterback behind Geno Smith after Aiden O'Connell goes down 6 to 8 weeks with a fractured wrist. Talk to me about these Raiders moves, Nolan. What do you think about what's going on in the desert? How big of a mess is it? And do you really think that Jakobi Meyers is going to get out of there?
First off, I don't really think it's that much of a mess. I think Las Vegas, they have plenty of money. They don't really spend. They didn't really make any big purchases. They haven't bought anybody big. And Geno Smith wasn't that big of a, he's a big piece for their offense, but he didn't cost a lot. And this Vegas team is not going to let their former maybe still wide receiver one walk. They're not going to let him. He's young. He's 28, but he's still showing. He's still flashy. He's still quick. He still can catch very well. And then you bring a guy like an Amari Cooper, who was honestly just like Jakobi Meyers when he was younger. He's fast, agile. He can do everything. They're literally the exact same person, except Jakobi is younger. Amari is just like him. And bringing in a solid, he's gonna be most likely their wide receiver 2 now, unless they let Meyers walk. I mean, they're gonna be fine. This is a great receiver room, plus with Brock Bowers. I mean, this Raiders offense is gonna be completely fine. Kenny Pickett has, he was on the Browns, on the Eagles. He's bounced around the league a little bit, but he's still a good quarterback. He's not going to win you an NFL. He's not going to win you a Super Bowl, but he's going to do you well for a few weeks. He can get you a few wins until your starter comes back. And I think they'll be perfectly fine with what they have. They'll be fine with Kenny Pickett for a few weeks, and plus bringing in Amari Cooper, their vet, they'll be perfectly fine.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's a lot going on in Vegas, but I think it's about time, everybody, that we take a look at why we're really here today. Fantasy football. We'll be right back after a quick break, breaking down everything you need to know as it is officially draft season. Less than 2 weeks until NFL kickoff. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Triple Threat Show. We are your hosts, Jeremy Lapidus, Mehrob Fatemi, Ryan Burns, and Nolan Jambor. If you were just tuning in, make sure you go check out the last segment. We just finished going up over all of the big news from around the NFL. Holdouts, hold-ins officially over in Washington and Cincinnati, and lots of moves out of Las Vegas. But now, the reason you're here, it is, of course, today, our fantasy football triple threat show extravaganza. We're going to go over everything, starting at the quarterbacks, ending with the tight ends, sleepers, everything else involved there. But why don't we start out with the most important position in football, not necessarily fantasy football, but in football with the quarterbacks. And obviously, when you're trying to find a quarterback in fantasy football, it's a little bit different when you're trying to find one in real life. We look a lot at the ones that have that rushing upside. That's the key word. But there are a couple passing quarterbacks that I like ahead of some of these guys. Not necessarily that they can't run, but because of the situation they're in. I'm looking at a guy like Joe Burrow, who I think has real potential to win MVP this season with just the pure counting stats that he's going to have the ability to put up. That does depend on how successful they are as a team, because you kind of have to be good to win MVP. But Joe Burrow probably leads the NFL in touchdown passes, and he's got a little bit when it comes to mobility. It's not too much, but he can get a little bit on the ground. Dak Prescott, another guy that I like as someone that if you're not in that range of your Josh Allens, your Lamar Jacksons, your Jaden Daniels, guys that you know are going to get, 500-600 plus yards on the ground, plus a bunch of touchdowns. These are guys that I like. Matthew Stafford officially is healthy now, according to the Rams. That's another one there. But overall, of course, you have to target your guys. But some guys that are in the later rounds that I kind of like, again, Dak Prescott, someone that I'm targeting in a lot of drafts. I think the addition of George Pickens is going to do wonders for that team. Matthew Stafford, again, you had Devontae Adams, and he's just been incredibly productive. Patrick Mahomes, I think, has a better season. And then Tua, I see people are very low on him. I think that Dolphins offense still has the ability to be as scary as it was a couple of seasons ago. If he stays healthy, when he was healthy, he was really good last year. The question, of course, can he stay healthy? Who are some of your guys, Mehrob, that you're looking at when it comes to the quarterback position you're targeting in fantasy drafts?
I'm trying to figure out how to set this up, but I mean, when I'm looking at quarterbacks over here, I mean, the first one that jumps out at me is Lamar Jackson. He's my guy. He's a great rushing quarterback, passing quarterback. Zay Flowers, that Ravens offense is phenomenal. Yeah, of course you have Derrick Henry in the backfield who makes Lamar Jackson's life a bajillion times easier. I mean, it just is what it is. Outside of him, Josh Allen, of course, I think Josh Allen's the best quarterback. If you have an opportunity to draft Josh Allen, take it, because he's the best quarterback, in my opinion, in the National Football League. Excuse me. As for sleepers, I mean, I'd say Jordan Love is a guy that I'm kind of targeting. If I don't get a quarterback in the first few rounds, Jordan Love's a big quarterback candidate. Probably in the later 6th, 7th, 8th rounds. He's good. He's a stud. He kind of just is a little bit inconsistent. I just can't tell exactly where he's going to be headed. But him, Bo Nix, CJ Stroud is another one that if Nico Collins can stay healthy, I'm worried about that offensive line. But CJ Stroud's another one that's kind of flying under the radar a little bit.
Yeah, no, CJ Stroud definitely is a really interesting one. You bring up that offensive line, and that comes with more of the outside factors affecting a quarterback. Because CJ Stroud definitely a top 10 quarterback, at least in the NFL, I think is pretty obviously where he kind of sits in the rankings. But you're gonna have guys that are in worse situations or better situations that are worse quarterbacks be ranked a little bit ahead of him. Ryan, talk to me a little bit about some of these quarterbacks here. What's your general philosophy, I guess, when it comes to quarterbacks? Because that's been a question that I've been going through a lot in fantasy. I always was a guy that waited till the end, but as we're seeing Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, these guys that put up huge numbers on the ground, go higher and higher in drafts. How are you treating the quarterback position? Are you waiting until you've got a couple guys left, or are you attacking it early?
Yeah, so, I mean, here's the thing. With these rushing quarterbacks, especially like Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, I mean, if they start to fall, you really do have to take them. But for me personally, I like the Joe Burrow and the Dak Prescott, as you mentioned. I mean, now that Dak is healthy, I mean, just with him and CeeDee Lamb as like their star 1-2 combo back in 2023. He finished as the 3rd overall quarterback. And now adding Pickens, I mean, we can only imagine what can happen from this Cowboys offense. We will find out very shortly, which I'm very glad to see. But I'm big on Dak Prescott. Obviously, Joe Burrow as well. The offense is always playing from behind. Their defense has been pretty terrible last year, so getting those valuable touchdowns. I mean, we saw Joe Burrow break a few rushing touchdowns just for 50 yards. That was a crazy play. I had Joe Burrow last year in one of my leagues, and that was really great to see. I mean, realistically, one of my deep sleepers, if you are one of the people who are waiting, I mean, I may be a little bit biased as a Patriots fan, but Drake May as well. He was really coming alive towards the end of the season last year, at least points-wise. I mean, he has some rushing upside, some sneaky rushing upside that not many people actually realize. And now adding Diggs, I mean, he's going to be the clear number 1 over there, so we'll see how well they connect and some sleep value in Drake May.
I guess while we're here, let's talk about the Patriots a little bit, because Drake May is a really interesting guy, not just in football, but just in fantasy football here as well, because you brought up a little bit of his legs. He's got the athleticism to make something happen with his own feet, not just his arms, but you add some more weapons. This is a Patriots team that's going to be really interesting for fantasy. We'll talk a little bit more in depth when the running back position comes up here in a second with Trey Henderson and Ramondre Stevenson and how that split's going to go, because that's a backfield that feels like it should go to Henderson, at least in my mind. But starting out, looks like it's going to Stevenson. Let's talk about that now, Nolan. I know you're the non-Boston person here, so we're gonna start with you and go around. How do you see that backfield working out? Because that's one that I think a lot of people, including myself, are targeting Henderson as a must draft, expecting him to take over the backfield sooner rather than later. What's your read there?
I mean, last year we saw Ramondre Stevenson prove himself to be an elite running back with the Patriots, so fantasy-wise and real-life-wise. I mean, he was, even with, O-line that obviously it's not the best in the NFL, it's still pretty good though. He still managed to find, holes when he's getting, quick pop passes. He's gaining 5-10 yards. He's getting multiple yards after contact. He's still a very good running back. Then you see Trey Henderson, this rookie, come in, and his first play as an NFL to getting the kick return touchdown. I mean, you see this and say, I mean, this kid's got potential. I mean, he was so fast, so explosive, and through the entirety of the preseason, he was clearly just an elite running back. He was just doing so much. I think this is going to be a very good running back room, like a 1A, 1B type of running back room. I think it could be like a Lions, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Montgomery type of switch. Like they switch every possession, give a guy a rest. That's how I see it. I think they're both very good running backs. I think both of them are too good to be 1A or just 1 and 2. I think it's going to be a 1A, 1B. Both these guys are elite. They're both going to be very good this year. And this Patriots team, off topic, I think they can be a playoff team this year just because how good the running back room is.
Yeah, this is an interesting running back room. I mean, as much as I'd say it's kind of 1A, 1B, like you're saying, Nolan, I'm kind of looking at it kind of like a Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier kind of situation. A main guy that kind of goes down the field, and then you have a guy that punches it home into the end zone. That's how I'm looking at this one running back room, at least to start. Who's going to end up being those positions? Is it going to be Stevenson in the end zone, Henderson in the middle of the field? I do not know. But I'm not shocked that it's Stevenson early on. I think giving Trayvon Henderson some room, some leeway to make some mistakes early on, being able to be that secondary guy before he's able to take the reins, I think he's going to get that start eventually, probably around mid-season. But early on, definitely get Ramondre Stevenson some reps, some starting reps, and then we'll see how Trayvon Henderson does.
Yeah, so that's the really interesting part about this, because I think most people around football in general expect Ramondre Stevenson to lose that starting job at some point. And because of that, the general public, he's falling a lot further on draft boards. He's a guy that you can get a lot further down in those mid rounds, like 8 to 10 kind of situation. And that's good value if you expect him to start for half the season. but I don't expect him to start for half the season. I think he's there for a couple of games, maybe 3 or 4 before Henderson really starts to take over, because I think there's just that big of a gap between the two of them. You don't take a guy like Henderson that early in the draft and don't use him right away, Ryan. How early is that switch going to happen, and what's the role for Ramondre after it does?
To be honest with you, I'm not sure. The way that I see this situation, I mean, Ramondre, especially this past year, just turned into the guy that every time he touched the ball, you were afraid that it was going to come out. He had 6 fumbles last season, and I see the Patriots as analyzing that problem and bringing in a direct solution. As Henderson had 0 fumbles in his 4 years. There's one technical maybe lost fumble, but besides that, 0 fumbles at Ohio State. They saw the problem, fixed it with a solution here. Especially if Stevenson ends up losing a fumble in the first few weeks, the job can be lost easily. I mean, we saw how explosive he was. First touch of his NFL career, running it back. I mean, he has the speed. We'll see what happens if he can protect the ball and provide value in that way.
But there's a lot of stuff to like. Getting back to the quarterback conversation a little bit, there is that interesting, I guess, dichotomy between, trying to build up the traditional fantasy situation where you get your quarterback later or you go quick. There's only a couple guys that I would take in that first couple rounds, them being Josh Allen, who just consistently finds his way to be a quarterback 1 or quarterback 2 every year. Lamar Jackson, the 2 MVP frontrunners from last season. Jaden Daniels is going to find his way up there because he's a special athlete. But the question then comes, where do you draft guys like Joe Burrow? Where do you draft guys like Jalen Hurts? Because Jalen Hurts doesn't necessarily have Lamar Jackson rushing upside, but with the tush push, he's going to get a good amount of touchdowns on the ground, which 6 points. It's a lot of points right there for 1-yard play. How high do you see these guys going right now? I mean, you get Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson in round 3, Jaden Daniels somewhere around there too. Jalen Hurts a round or 2 behind him in a lot of places, but where's too far where it's sitting at your turn? You're in round what, Mehrob? You have to take Jalen Hurts.
I think it's so tough because I'm either a top tier quarterback guy in the 2nd or 3rd round, or I let it fall to like the 6th. Jalen Hurts is one of those guys that if I see him at the 5th round, I just have to take him. There's just no way. But I mean, a lot of people I know would definitely take him in the 4th. So it's I feel like it's up to preference in a lot of ways.
Go in a circle.
Yeah, I mean, really, for me, I saw Joe Burrow falling around the 5th round in one of my leagues, and I went ahead and grabbed him. I mean, for Joe Burrow-esque players, where I mentioned before with these pocket passers, I'm going to grab him. Now, Hurts, I mean, you just get those 1-yard touchdowns almost guaranteed at this point. They're not doing anything to ban the tush push or anything like that. It's a fair play because not every team can do it. It's not automatic for every team. Just these Eagles have been finding success. I mean, if he gets to like that late 5th, I mean, he's not going 6th. I mean, it really depends on what strategy I'm going for here and how high I want to get my QB. That 5th, 6th round, maybe it all depends, but right around that range.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about guys that we like here, but Nolan, it's not all happy smiles, roses, and a field of flowers, right? There are guys that we definitely don't want when it comes to that quarterback position. A couple guys that I'm avoiding here. I'm not taking Aaron Rodgers. I know that's probably not too much of a hot take here, but Aaron Rodgers in a new situation is always going to bring some people in with that name value. Jared Goff is another quarterback that I'm avoiding. I think that losing that offensive coordinator in Ben Johnson, losing your center in Frank Ragnow is really going to hurt his team and Jared Goff a lot. Jared Goff is a guy that if the offensive lines start to struggle, as we saw in his transition from Super Bowl leading quarterback in LA to, a guy that couldn't take him to the playoffs, eventually getting shipped off in exchange for Matthew Stafford to the Lions, Jared Goff's a guy that I'm not touching at all. I think he's someone that could put up another season like he did last year, but the efficiency numbers, the underlying numbers, there's no way he's going to be able to replicate that in my mind.
Not at all. I mean, I don't see, even as a Lions fan, I can see why you wouldn't. He's not really a fantasy quarterback, really. He's in the pocket. If the pocket collapses, he is too slow to get out of it. If you watch him, he moves like a tree trunk. He is super slow. A lot of the touchdowns last year come from handoffs to Gibbs or Montgomery. Yeah, he gets a good pass to Jameson Williams or Laporta or St. Brown. I mean, he gets a lot of passing touchdowns. But a majority of them are coming from handoffs. He's not the greatest fantasy quarterback. He's a good quarterback, but he's not a guy I would go out of my way to take in a fantasy draft. Unless you have a quarterback who, you need. You're in the 14th round, you need a quarterback. Yeah, pick up Jared Goff. He'll get you a solid 15 points, but it's not going to win you a fantasy game. But he is a good quarterback in my opinion still, bias. No bias. I think he's still a good quarterback. He's just not a good fantasy quarterback. Like I've said, he just can't really win. He's not going to win you a fantasy game, but he'll get you 15, maybe 20.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys, but who else? These are the guys that I'm avoiding. I'm not touching Jared Goff. He's the big one that I think I might get a little bit of flack here for. But who are some guys that you guys don't really want to touch, Ryan?
I really don't want to get too close to this Bears offense if I'm being serious. I don't really like Caleb in this position. I mean, I'm fading him myself. I believe it was Mehrob who brought up CJ Stroud. I'm not too sure if I'm a big fan of him in fantasy as well. I like to, like I mentioned, either go for those big name slingers or, sometimes go down and get like a Kyler Murray. I see some better plays coming from him this year and some upside. I'm going to stay away from Caleb myself. He's not value to me.
Yeah. Mehrob, same to you.
Yeah, I can 100% see that with Caleb Williams, no doubt about it. Just real quick, if anybody's even thinking about drafting Aaron Rodgers, this is all I have to say for them. No, don't do it. It's a stupid idea. Don't do it. This is not 35-year-old Aaron Rodgers with the Packers. It just doesn't. It's just no. Just don't do it. That's all I have to say about that. But in terms of sleepers, I mean, Kyler Murray is a big one. I think the Cardinals' offense. I think Marvin Harrison has a nice year this year. I think the Cardinals' offense in general. Marvin Harrison Jr. You have McBride there, who showed up big time last year. You still have James Conner. It's going to be an interesting offense. Outside of that, I mean, I'm going to say it again. Bo Nix, everybody keeps bringing up the sophomore slump. I don't see it at all. I think he's going to be even better than he was last year, in my opinion, because I think he just didn't have a great opportunity throwing the ball, and we haven't seen how good he can do that personally. Other than that, a guy that I think could be struggling a lot, I know Jeremy brought him up, Tua Tagovailoa. He is a injury away. He's a concussion away from retirement. He really is. Like, if we're being honest, this is a guy who's been consistently getting concussions, and it's unfortunate because when he got into the league, he was an unbelievable pocket escaper, being able to throw the ball down the field. We saw that connection with him and Waddle early on. Then it turned into Waddle and Tyreek Hill on both sides of the field, and that Dolphins offense was so fun to watch back in the day. But I mean, Tua with those injuries have really just been downhill for his career, and I mean, I just can't see much value in that one. So that's a big no for me as well.
Yeah, before we get to the running backs here, we got a question from Rebecca in the chat. What are your guys' thoughts, and I'll leave this up to whoever wants it, on taking Jamar Chase first overall pick in a 12-man league, and who would you take in the 2 and 3 there? Because
not crazy. That's not that. I had my 12-man draft a few days ago, like a week ago, and he was the second person off the board. He is going to be he's not gonna decline. He obviously still has Joe Burrow, and Joe Burrow has been targeting him since they had the connection to LSU, and now they brought it to the Bengals. I mean, they're gonna be insane again. He's been the wide receiver 1 there for 4 years now, and this shows no sign of slowing down at all. But if I'm going, Jamar Chase 1, I would go for, you get your elite wide receiver 1, go for round 2 and 3. I'm going for a running back. I think if you're a 12-man league, I think you're still going to be also running backs. I think a guy you can pick up maybe a better running back in the second round that probably could be I like Josh. I think Josh Jacobs or Kyron Williams. They'll still be on the board. Kyron Williams and Josh Jacobs are both touchdown merchants, and those guys can probably both fall to you. They can both. That's what they're known for. Get the goal line, hop in the end zone. I mean, they're good for their O lines. Are both good enough to help him. Help in the red zone. That's who I'd go for, in my opinion.
Yeah, I generally don't mind taking Ja'Marr Chase at 1. The big question is, especially in a 12-man league, when you look at what's coming down the board later on, you find yourself really having to reach on running backs because you're not going to find another one. In that second, third round turn, you take, another wide receiver duo there. You've got like your Lad McConkeys, your Devontae Adams, stuff like that there, and you don't run into another running back. Maybe you take a Chase Brown there, who I'm a big fan of Chase Brown, but it's a little bit of a risky. You can always go no running backs. That's the thing you can do. It's something that people like to preach, not something that I like to do. I don't generally love picking from the 101 this year. I just don't think it's a great spot. I might end up taking a guy like Bijan, who's my number 1 running back on the board instead of Ja'Marr Chase, despite I think Chase probably going to be the better overall player when it comes to fantasy points. But you need a running back, and it's just going to be real slim pickings when it gets back to you in round 2 and 3 there. But speaking of the running backs, this is one of the more intriguing positions in all of fantasy football because there are so many different ways you can do it. There's not enough running backs to go around where everybody's going to feel comfortable. We've heard tales of these no running back teams. We've heard tales of the superstar running back, your hero back kind of strategy. What is your idea heading into this draft specifically? Because I know it changes. Are you going more balanced? Are you avoiding the running back? What positions in the draft, like draft pick wise, are you targeting running backs in the first round? What's your general strategy around this?
I tend to start with running backs. I go for the past 3 seasons. I've gone first 3 rounds: starter, backup running back. My first draft this year, I took Josh Jacobs first round. I had pick 3. Was it 3? Yeah, no, pick 10. Sorry, pick 10 at Josh Jacobs. Then went Kyron Williams round 2, pick 3. I think that was a good pick. I think, like I said earlier, they're both good touchdown guys. They both get in the red zone. And then for the third, I always go, like I said, 3 running backs. First, the third guy I picked up, I picked up Chuba Hubbard, another starter, but he's going to be, in my opinion, a very good running back like he was last year. And I mean, he's just with this new Panthers offense, Adam Thielen. You bring a guy like Hunter Renfrow out of retirement, Tech McMillan. You have a new and improved, quarterback in Bryce Young. I mean, this Panthers team is going to be good, and that's why I took Chuba Hubbard again after he won me my league last year.
Yeah, there are lots of different ways to do it. Ryan, walk me through your running backs. What's your general thoughts? Who are your top guys? What are you doing with the running backs this year?
I mean, honestly, the top 3 genuinely for me are interchangeable. I mean, I really can't pinpoint, and you really can't go wrong with the Saquon, Gibbs, and Bijan in my eyes. I mean, with the new offensive coordinator in the Lions, we don't exactly know what the running back strategy is going to look like. Will they stay with what worked last year? Will Gibbs get a little bit more of a primary role? I know they had also mentioned him taking some reps at slot receiver as a running back. Could that be some extra positional value there? I mean, Saquon had just so many touches last year. Will they keep it up again? Will he get towards more the injury prone? Bijan, I mean, they've been saying it's his year for the past 2. I mean, is it his year to average those 20 points per game like he was towards the end of the season? I don't think you can really go wrong with any of those 3 as your running back 1. I'm a little scared on guys like A-Chain, especially with the calf. I really don't know how sustainable that will be throughout the year, and especially if this is happening before the season even starts. And to be honest, I'm not too sure, but it really all depends for me where exactly you're drafting. And I think an underrated thing with fantasy football is you have to know who you're against, who your league mates are, how they draft, where they reaching on players, a little bit of fan favorites or bias as well. But I mean, if you're looking in these earlier picks, I wouldn't mind going for a running back early. I myself am a wide receiver early type of guy. I like having those superstar wide receivers and then figuring out the running backs in either round 2, 3, 4 range. But it's to each their own, and I don't think you can go wrong with any of those top 3 running backs if you can get them early enough.
Yeah, and to your point, Ryan, there's lots of guys that you can find later on, like especially rookie running backs. You talk about last year, Bucky Irving made a big jump. Tyrone Tracy made a big jump. Guys that you could get near the bottom of these drafts. Now, this year, there's obviously going to be them, but the rookie running backs are kind of more highlighted. We talked a little bit about Travion Henderson. Omarion Hampton is getting a lot of hype as the RB1 over there. Of course, Ashton Genty. There's a lot of rookie running backs to love. What are some of those guys that you're looking for in those later rounds? As you say, you target them in round 2, 3, 4, and maybe even further on as potential depth pieces for your bench.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, Amarion, I'm not sure what will come of it. He looks really great, and people are valuing him very highly as well. I mean, as some people are joking around right now that Najee's a pirate right now because he still can't see out of his eye. We don't really know what exactly that running back room will look like. I mean, he is a great player. I'm definitely not opposed to drafting Hampton myself. As we go later down, I mean, here's a little draft spoiler for those, but I really like Bill on the Commanders. He especially with Bijan, with Brian Robinson gone. I mean, him, Eckler, and I mean, they have a lot of competition, but he's looking great in the preseason. He's my sort of deeper sleeper that in the leagues that I drafted earlier, I snagged him up on the waiver wire, and he'll be my bench sleeper and hopefully grow into a starter and win me my leagues.
There we go. That's how you get ahead. That's ball knowledge right there. But there's also other guys that high risers, right? Chase Brown was one of those guys last year. But one of the bigger question marks when it comes to running backs, Mehrob, is with Christian McCaffrey. He, of course, is undeniably one of the most talented backs in the NFL. But of course, he has his injury issues. He barely played last season after being the offensive player of the year before and, killing it in fantasy in every way you possibly could imagine. Is it going to be a healthy year for CMC? How cautious are you with him, and where you expect him to go in drafts?
I mean, I have CMC personally sitting right outside of the top 4. I mean, he's a guy that has been on my radar as well as sitting where I am with the 106. But I mean, Christian McCaffrey is an absolute stud of a player. I mean, he's a guy who went 2 years in a row the number 1 overall pick in fantasy in 2021 and 2022 when he was healthy. He's an absolute stud of a player. So I mean, the only reason there's guys above him is because of age and injury issues. But when he's fully healthy, this is a guy that you can rely on to get you points in fantasy. He's a guy that I still have on my radar, just sitting right outside of the top 3. Outside of that, I mean, when you get into the later rounds, I'm looking at a guy like kind of Alvin Kamara, kind of pretty much the heart and soul of that Saints offense. A guy like James Cook, who just got paid with Buffalo. Kenneth Walker with the Seahawks. I know I'm a little bit of a Seahawks fan, but Breece Hall, another great stud. I feel like there's some depth in this year's running back draft, and if you can't get one of those top 3 guys, don't stress too much. Sometimes you can just go after that top receiver and then go in the next round and draft a running back. This is a draft full of depth, and you just got to draft whoever's best available to you in the moment.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. There's a lot of guys that you can get later in those rounds. Your second round, third round kind of turns depending on where you're picking. One of those guys for me is Chase Brown. We talked a little bit about him, how he had a huge season down the stretch last year, was RB3 in the second half of the year, Chase Brown. Now he's going to be a part of an elite offense. In my opinion, the best offense that there's going to be in the NFL this season. How high are you taking him? And my hot take is that he could finish in the top 5 for running backs. How crazy is that? Where are you taking a guy like Chase Brown? Who's your big swing, Nolan?
Chase Brown, I mean, it's not crazy to say that. I mean, he just proved himself last year. I mean, he kind of came out of nowhere last year, and he kind of swept people off his feet with the way he played. But honestly, a guy for me that I've reached on the past few years has always done me pretty well. Not top 5 well, but has got me, good points every week. James Conner from Arizona. I think he's always just been kind of a guy who I've gone out and drafted, and he's consistently gotten me 10 points a week. For a running back, I'll take that. he's not in 10 points for a running back. I'll take that. He's not a pass heavy receiver. He's a very run heavy guy, and they don't use him a lot in the red zone. So when if you see a running back like James Conner getting 10 plus points without scoring a single touchdown, I mean, that's why I love him, because he always just manages to get you a lot of points, just runs it down after contact. I mean, he just keeps running. And that's a guy I've been drafting the past 3-4 years now, and I've never once shied away from him because he's always just reliable for me. He's always just getting me points whenever he needs to be without even scoring.
Nolan, are you buying into the news that they might split carries down in Arizona? I know they've talked a lot about Trey Benson as a guy that who's gotten a lot of run in preseason. We saw him a little bit last year. James Conner himself has said that he might be taking a little bit of a step back. How concerning is that for you when you're looking at a guy you like in James Conner?
I think even if he steps back, it won't be that big of a step back. I think he'll still be kind of their number one guy. Well, I wouldn't say he's even going to be splitting snaps. Yeah, he's a little older compared to the new guy, but I still think he'll be fine. I think he'll still be getting enough touches to keep consistently getting 10 points a game. And even if he doesn't, that's okay. Because at that point, they'll probably switch him to more of a goal line running back. I mean, the new guy they have down there he's younger, so they're going to use him more in the open field, towards the midfield, and bring James Conner in towards the red zone to try to, punch in a touchdown. So either way, I think it'll be okay. I don't think they're going to, run him out of Arizona. I think he'll still be there, using him more as a goal line running back if that is the case.
Yeah. I think he's going to have a reduced role. But speaking of older running backs there, that's a big concern. We talk about all the time when running back contracts come up. Once they hit that magical age of 29, they fall off a cliff. You talk about guys like Dalvin Cook that just disappeared, right? We have a guy in Derrick Henry that just is breaking every single trend when it comes to running backs, but he's not the only older running back that's up there. Saquon Barkley had a lot of touches last year, over 2,000 yards last season from scrimmage, and broke the single season rushing record for any running back, including playoffs. He had one of the best running back seasons of all time. These are two older running backs that are getting a lot of love. You're talking pretty consensus top 4 running backs for these guys, at least Saquon consensus top 3. And it's hard not to like guys like that. But are you shying away from some of these older running backs? You're Josh Jacobs, who is kind of up there in that conversation. You're Aaron Jones. I know there's been a lot of talk, Ryan, about Jordan Mason potentially taking some carries. How are you treating some of these backfields that have established but older runners?
Yeah, I mean, it really all depends. Like I mentioned earlier, for someone like Saquon, really the only thing there that we're really worried about is injury with that increase, or with the such large amount of touches last season. Obviously, there's not really a way you could increase the touches this year, but just consistency with those injuries. I mean, for someone like Kamara, Olave on the Saints is just... He's also one of those guys, as you mentioned with Tua, who could be a concussion away from a possible retirement. I mean, Kamara, as we know, he's like a PPR merchant. If he can catch those passes, he can provide that value, especially with the rounds he's going in. Now, you mentioned Aaron Jones. I'm fading Aaron Jones this year. I mean, Jordan Mason, I think he will take over the backfield at some point this season. I mean, Aaron Jones is still a strong back, but he did pretty horrible in the red zone last season. So especially if Mason can come in hot, take those red zone touches, flip them into touchdowns, he can work towards being more so a starter. So for Aaron Jones, I'm going to fade him. Henry, he's just a different specimen right now. I mean, we saw a season unlike many others, especially at that age. He's a unicorn in this league. And I mean, it's hard to shy away. As Rob said, sometimes you have to pick the best player on the board, even if you are scared of that age. Just last season, I mean, he finished, I think, as running back 4 in PPR leagues. I mean, it's not... You kind of have to pick him at some point if he's there for you, but really shying away from Aaron Jones. The other guys can make up for it in ways.
Yeah, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, but one of the more important things when we're talking about running backs, aside from hitting your top guys and, getting the guys that are going to stay healthy, which you can't really control, is controlling the outcomes. And specifically what I mean is getting those good handcuffs, the guys that can come behind you if, God forsake, an injury happens, right? You talk about David Montgomery to your Jahmyr Gibbs, your Jordan Masons to your Aaron Jones. Some of these guys are getting a lot of love, but some other backfields as some deep handcuffs, kind of like your Bucky Irving last season, or your Tyrone Tracy last season, or your Chase Brown last season. Some guys like Ollie Gordon down there in Miami, who's going to get, I think, all of the goal line and short yardage touches because they don't have another big back that can break tackles like that in Miami. A guy like Kyle Monungai in an offense now run by Ben Johnson in Chicago. These are guys that I'm looking at to kind of have that role in the later parts of your draft. There's also been discussions, Mehrob, about Zach Charbonnet. Now, I am a huge Kenneth Walker canine truther, okay? He is the guy that I think is basically a top 10 running back when he stays healthy, but people are trying to push this idea that Charbonnet is as good or better than him. Now, I think they're wrong, and I think they're stupid for saying that. But you're our resident Seahawks fan here. Talk to me about that running back situation. What is your read on the Seattle Seahawks?
Well, before I get into the entire offense, let's dive into that question you asked with that running back room. I feel like when you're comparing these two running backs with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, you're kind of comparing apples to oranges. You're comparing a guy in Kenneth Walker who's really elusive, a smaller guy, quicker guy, patient, kind of reminds me like a Le'Veon Bell-esque player, is really easy to slip between the tackles, is really patient with that, and then just turns on the jets and goes. He reminds me of Le'Veon Bell personally like that. But when you look at Zach Charbonnet, his speed, his ability to power rush, he's just he's a big back. He's a big time back. He's a big dude. So, I mean, his ability to run through tackles, I think he's really good on goal line situations. I'm just really worried about Kenneth Walker's health, and if they can split their touches, I think they'll be fine. I think that was a big issue early on in their years, the last couple of years, maybe 2 years ago, less last year, but this year especially, I expect a little bit of a 50-50 trade-off between those two because, I mean, Charbonnet is going to be a big power back at the goal line for sure, but Kenneth Walker, he'll probably get a lot of those mid 50-yard line, third and long, third and medium situations when you want to run the ball just to get the first down or possibly just get into field goal range.
Yeah, and there's a lot of other situations kind of like that one where there's not a clear, I mean, I think this one's a little bit different where K9 should be the clear running back one. I'm not concerned about it barring injury, but there are other backfields that are a little bit more murky, Nolan, right? We're talking about the Jaguars backfield. The Jets backfield is one that is super fascinating to me because Breece Hall is going in the third round. Braylon Allen is going into those later rounds, but it seems like Braylon Allen is going to have a large, not majority, but a large amount of touches and plays, snaps in this offense. What are your thoughts on some of these more murkier backfields? Who's the running back that you're targeting in places like Jacksonville and New York?
New York, I can see why Breece Hall is falling to the third, not even falling, going to the third round. He is still, even if, he had a little bit of injury last year, nothing crazy. He wasn't out for an excessive amount of time, but he is still a good running back. He's still going to be the running back one. And Braylon Allen is a great running back. He proved himself last year. He came in, he got plenty of touches. He proved himself to be a quick running back, which the Jets need. But I still think they're still going to have, Breece Hall is their number one guy. I think they're not going to shy away from him. And the Jets offense, honestly, is going to be a lot better now, especially with Garrett Wilson getting that money that he desperately wanted, and they finally got him. So I think now, with that being just settled, I think Breece Hall just kind of has to work for it. I think he's going to want to work harder to try to get money like Garrett Wilson did, so they're going to keep playing because he's going to play better for more money. So he's going to prove himself to be, the better running back in that backfield, and he's going to dominate. I really think he will. Braylon Allen, great running back, but he's not going to be the running back one this year. He'll be running back two, but I think Breece Hall will be a really good running back for the Jets this year just because he wants to prove himself to be the best one.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, I mean, there's also guys in the running back room where we're going to see them explode out of nowhere. Bill Krosky-Merritt has been the darling of the offseason, like you brought up, Ryan. Who else is kind of in that bucket as the guy that maybe we don't know right now, but by the end of the season is going to be a household name?
Yeah, I mean, this is really tough to say. For me personally, I am a big believer, although I've been told it's hot take, and I've been told, I'm saying the wrong things here. I'm more of a believer in Tank Bigsby than Travis Etienne. I really do. I don't really know how Travis Etienne and his outlook will be this season. But Tank Bigsby, he didn't have a great season last year. I mean, he averaged 8.1 fantasy points per game. But there were a few games when he earned that starting role, either due to Etienne sitting out or just, losing the actual running back battle there, where where Bigsby, came and shined as what looked like an RB1. I mean, for me, when I looked and we drafted the other day, in the Yahoo experts were even ranking Tank Bigsby above ETN in on some apps, and I was a little bit taken aback by that because I felt validated by some of these experts here. I know that's a little bit of a hot take in some places, but depending on who you talk to. But for me, I mean, I really do like Tank Bigsby, and as I mentioned earlier, I'm a big fan of Bill. I think he can win that running back room over, even if it takes a little bit into the season. I like them. I like them both. Those are my two who can.
Yeah, I think bringing up that Jacksonville Jaguars backfield is super interesting because not only do you have that battle with a new head coach that didn't draft any of these guys, a battle that happened last year between ETN and Tanks Bigsby, but you also get Bashal Tutin out of Virginia Tech, who is drafted by this new regime, a guy that looked pretty solid in the preseason. Again, preseason, so take everything with a grain of salt. They're going against second and third stringers and yada yada and all that. But there is definitely quite the logjam there. Now, I'm on the opposite side of this from you, Ryan. I think ETN is bound for a bounce back year because in a Liam Cohen offense, he can play more of that Bucky Irving role, getting some of that receiving work that Tank Bigsby isn't really going to have. But at the same time, Tank Bigsby is a better runner. You want a guy that can run in between the tackle. There's, I think, room for both of them to be successful, but I expect them to have go by the hot hand here. Could be Bigsby, could be ETN, it could even be Tutton there. Mehrob, what's your read on that Jacksonville Jaguars running back room?
I mean, it's definitely a weird one. We saw how much of a dud Travis Etienne was last year and how much value Bigsby got. I mean, I'm right there with Ryan. I mean, Bigsby over Etienne is not that hot of a take just based on what we saw last year. Of course, we saw before that Etienne was on an absolute tear across the NFL, and it very well could be that Etienne comes out and continues to do that. But I mean, even in the preseason sample size, we haven't seen Etienne do too much. I think I'm rolling with Ryan here. I think Bigsby is the way to go if you're drafting. If you see him on the board, take him over Etienne. I would say for sure, keep him as a sleeper.
Yeah, you can get ETN in like the last round of drafts, which is kind of where I've been taking him. But there's a lot more we have to cover here. We still haven't gotten to the wide receivers, which that's coming up next. Before we get there, though, give me your final thoughts on running backs. We'll go around the room. We'll start with you, Nolan, Ryan, then Mehrob. Talk to me about last thoughts on running backs here.
Chuba Hubbard will win you a fantasy league. Pick him up.
I'm gonna have to I'm gonna push past that point. I'm gonna give the big white button to CMC, in my opinion, the fade button. I'm on the fade CMC train.
If you have an opportunity to draft Josh Jacobs late in the second round, take him. He's going to be a league winner late in December, especially in Green Bay in that cold weather. Take him there. He's an absolute league winner.
I love the props, boys. My league winner is Chase Brown. I kind of touched on that earlier, but there's a lot to cover when it comes to wide receivers, and we kind of touched on it a little bit in the running back category when we were talking about what you prefer to draft, but it depends on the league you're in. I know I play a lot of half PPR. A lot of people do full PPR. I don't know too many people that do standard there, but that makes a big difference when you're talking about who to draft these guys. What's your preferred method, and how much does that matter when you're looking at a top wide receiver as opposed to a running back?
I mean, depends on where you are drafting. For me, I personally, as I mentioned before, I feel safer when I do have a star wide receiver who can blow up for those high scoring games. Obviously, within those PPR leagues, each catch just means so much. And when you're playing down, especially, somebody obviously, for me, Jamar Chase is the obvious 101. That's just my opinion. I'm big on those wide receivers. If he is still on the board, no matter where you're picking, you should be hitting that draft button. And in my opinion, even if that is the 101, there's just so much value with wide receivers being able to break away and get those big catches. I mean, somebody even like BTJ, who I'm sure we'll touch on a bit, he really improved and developed in his rookie season. I see a lot of value in someone like that if you're taking or if you have a little bit of a later draft position where you can get him either at the tail end of the first or even beginning half of that second round. I'm big into those star wide receivers.
Yeah, Jamar Chase is that guy. He's someone that obviously won the Triple Crown for wide receivers last season. So we're talking about a guy in an elite offense that's going to have to air it out based on that defense. But we also haven't seen a wide receiver repeat as wide receiver 1 overall in almost 5 seasons. There's a lot of guys candidates to take over that spot from Jamar. And that's not to say that Jamar Chase isn't going to be an elite wide receiver, because I think he is, bar none, the safest pick that you can take in the fantasy draft, undeniably, at least in my mind. But I'm looking at guys like CeeDee Lamb, like a Puka Nacua, maybe even a Malik Neighbors that are going to get a lot of just targets, a lot of opportunities to get the ball in their hand. A lot of times it comes down to the touchdown numbers, and you can't predict touchdowns. You just can't. But who are your candidates, Mehrob, that could be the next wide receiver 1 outside of Jamar Chase?
I mean, you touched on him. I think Malik Neighbors is that guy in New York. I mean, I love him. Me and Ryan have talked about this off camera, but I mean, Malik Neighbors is an absolute stud. He really is. I want to draft him so bad, and I know a lot of people know this, but he's an absolute stud. I really think so. I think he's going to get so many targets, and I think he's probably going to have top 3, top 4 yards among the wide receivers in the league. I think top 4 in yards. But other than that, I mean, I'm looking at a guy like a Nico Collins to come back for the Texans and show up in a big way. Of course, we talked about him earlier in the show, Terry McLaurin. He's such an important piece to that Washington Commanders offense as a deep ball threat. He's a big-time guy that I'm looking at, especially late in the season, really when the Commanders need to get some wins. They might not use him earlier on in the season. They might try to use Deebo Samuel on the other side. But as those two sides start to mesh and get some chemistry with one another, I really think McLaurin's going to get a lot of targets here late in the season. I love him, and I think he's going to be a big-time league winner.
Yeah, I'll push back on Terry a little bit, not because I don't think he's going to be great. I think he's going to be the wide receiver 12, but because he was so touchdown dependent last season. He had double-digit touchdowns for the first time in his career. That's not something that you can really expect him to repeat. I still think he's going to be great in a really good Washington offense. One name I'll throw at you guys here, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. How about Drake London? In an offense now run by Michael Penix, a connection that we saw down the stretch of the season. Drake London was really, really productive with Penix in there, a full off season together. There's not too many other options as far as wide receivers in Atlanta for them to throw to. I think he might be in line for a monster season, potentially even wide receiver 1 if he can find his way to the end zone. What do you think of a guy like that?
I mean, repeat the question one more time, Jeremy. I apologize.
Thoughts on Drake London? I've got him as wide receiver 7, which I've been told is a little bit high. I've got Malik Neighbors, Amon-Ra, Puka, Jay Jettis, CD, and Jamar ahead of him. But I couldn't put him any lower because of the opportunity in an offense he has. He's the guy that I'm looking at as a really good value pick in that second to maybe even third round if you have a lucky enough draft.
I mean, yeah, Drake London's really kind of found his spot in that Falcons offense. I actually also really like Michael Penix, and I think that's going to be a big time part of this. I like his arm, I like his precision, his accuracy. This is a big reason why I kind of like Kyle Pitts in this draft as well, and we'll get to the tight end position later on. But I mean, Drake London's going to be a big time second round pick. I really think so, and I think whoever's able to draft him, I'm not saying he's a league winner, but I think he's going to help you, especially early on to middle of the season, to get some consistent 10 to 15 points a game.
I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with that either. I mean, I believe I have him in the 8th for me, or in the 9th, excuse me. But the only person changing between hours would I put Nico above him. But that is all depending on, how the year looks out down the line, as well as his obviously injury. But that you could say that with everybody. But I do really like Drake London as well. I mean, he finished as the wide receiver 5 in PPR leagues last year. Really cannot go wrong, especially as Mooney's battling some injuries as well. We really don't know what that will actually look like when the season does begin. But I've seen people take Drake London at the end of the 1st, beginning of the 2nd. Personally, I don't think he's really the type of guy to drop to the 3rd round. But I mean, really, when you look at it, I think he's the consensus around that 7 to 10, wide receiver 7 to 10 pick. So really all depends on, as we mentioned and touched on earlier, your league mates, how they're drafting, who they like to target, their strategies. But I think he's a really great pick to have around that, mid-2nd round, maybe 3rd if you can snag him there.
I also want to take a quick detour right back to Jacksonville, where we just spent a little time in that running back room, because they have one of the more interesting wide receiver rooms. Brian Thomas Jr., his rookie season, was top 3 in pure receiving yards as just the guy down with the Jaguars. New head coach, new offensive system, new weapon in Travis Hunter. Nolan, Travis Hunter is perplexing. He is not a guy that I know how to handle, because we don't know how much snaps he's going to get on offense, how many snaps he's going to get defensively. What do you expect out of him? And more importantly, for a guy in Brian Thomas Jr. that's going near the end of the 1st round, beginning of the 2nd, how big of an effect is it going to have on him comparing it to last season?
Well, I believe as I saw this a while ago, I was thinking about Travis Hunter's rotations. He's only playing every other possession. So he'll be playing offense in one possession, take a break, then defense. So I think that even with the addition of Travis Hunter, Brian Thomas should have no reason to fall anywhere out of mid-2nd round. He was an absolute phenomenal weapon for the Jags last year when they had, obviously you had ETN hurt. You had really no other weapons besides Brian Thomas. And he really stepped up to provide, a good, at least a solid pure wide receiver 1 and just a pure best player on the field for the Jaguars offense. I mean, he was really just their guy. He was the go-to receiver. They really had nothing else going besides him. And I think this year he's really due for a breakout year, especially with, especially if, ETN / Tank Bigsby's playing. Maybe Trevor Lawrence, maybe he steps it up this year. Maybe he finally gets out of it. Maybe this is the year Trevor Lawrence, proves everybody wrong, why he was paid so much money all those years ago, and why he was, a 1st-round pick. This could be the year. Maybe it's not. But regardless, Brian Thomas is still going to be the Jags' number 1 guy, and he's still going to be top 10. I think he'll be a top 10 receiver this year. PPR, points per, just receiving-wise, top 10. He's just that good. He's just good and he's young. He'll be great.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to handle this wide receiver area, and more on a football side of things, we're starting to see a lot of value being put into these slot receivers, right? There are guys like Amon-Ra who play mostly in the slot. Chris Godwin, of course, has made a career out of playing in the slot there. Ladd McConkey played a lot in the slot last year and was real high up there. Is there an avoidance of slot players? Are you targeting slot players, or does it more depend on the offense for you guys, Mehrob, when you're looking at a decision between an X receiver like a Jamar Chase, a CeeDee Lamb, and a slot guy like an Amon-Ra St. Brown?
I mean, Definitely, I'm looking at their position. I mean, a slot guy like Amon-Ra, I feel like it depends on the offense as well. It depends on if you're on a run-heavy offense, it depends on the style of offense that the team likes to use. For example, say you have a Cooper Cup with the Seattle Seahawks. You're in an offense run by Coach Kubiak that loves to just run the ball. I mean, they're going to be running with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet all the time. I'm just using this side example, but I mean, I'm looking at their lead. I'm looking at a lead wide receiver over there. I'm looking at a guy like a CD Lamb, like a Malik Neighbors that can show out and get a lot of targets, can get deep ball attempts, can get deep ball targets across the board. Will get a majority of the targets versus a slot guy that will be there for like a third and medium, a second and medium in shorter yardage situations for a catch and run kind of guy. I mean, they're still good, but I mean, you're not going to get as much value in that situation versus a lead target kind of guy.
And then I wanna toss this over to you, Ryan. Here, we've talked about a lot of different receivers that I'm a big fan of. Who are some guys, some teams, some situations in general that you're taking a look at, or guys that you just don't want to touch with a 10-foot pole?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, here's a situation that, I kind of want to hear your guys' opinion on this as well. I don't really know what is happening with this Pittsburgh Steelers offense. I know in one of my leagues, DK did fall to me, and, I'm taking the risk on him in one of my leagues. Not all of them. You can't put all the eggs in one basket. When you're looking at it, I mean, he's really the guy for the Steelers. I mean, who else are they really throwing to over there? Regardless, I mean, DK's still a stud. I mean, he's an athlete. It just all depends on how he's going to actually play. So the Steelers are a little bit interesting. One guy I'm kind of fading on a great offense is AJ Brown. There's so many weapons there. I mean, Devonta Smith actually gets a lot of red zone targets too, as well. And then AJ Brown, yeah, he can get those insane contested catches, those go up for the balls almost like no other. And I'm still fading him because at the ADP of, the round 2, I just don't see as much consistency as well as, those past injuries as well. So I'm going to be fading the top guy in the Eagles.
Yeah, DK Metcalf is a really interesting situation because he's not only the weapon, but he's on a new team, new scheme, new quarterback, lots of new over there. The Steelers and Arthur Smith in general is a guy that likes to run the ball. I don't see Tyler Warren, or excuse me, I don't see the running backs going on in Pittsburgh being these guys that can really carry an offense. And Aaron Rodgers likes to air the ball out. He's a gunslinger, despite him being 42 at this point. He's still going to go out there and command that offense a little bit. I don't know how much say he's going to have because it didn't work out too well in Jacksonville, but it worked out in New York with the Jets. But it worked out pretty well over with the Packers. I'm fading DK. I don't trust that offense at all. We saw Arthur Smith's offense not produce great wide receivers down in Atlanta, and I mean they were able to do it with AJ Brown. His offense was able to do it in Tennessee, but that was when you had Derrick Henry to bring everybody into the box, and the Steelers don't really have that same option with Warren and Caleb Johnson, the rookie out of Iowa. But there is definitely a worth in taking a risk on him. But at the place he's going, I'd rather have a guy like Mike Evans, who's going to be going right next to him in that 40, 45 kind of area of your drafts.
Yeah, no, I completely see that. For me, I'm in a handful of leagues here, so in some you got to take those risks, but generally, yeah, DK is more of a fade candidate, but we will see. I mean, if Aaron Rodgers can, I mean, at this point with his age, we really don't know what we're looking at this year. As we saw last year in New York, as you mentioned, wasn't anything too great there. But, it's DK Metcalf, as you said, everything new. We'll see what he can do with it. But, yeah, I'm not really too sure.
I think he won't even be the number one target in Pittsburgh anyway. I think Pat Freiermuth will be the number one guy.
Really?
So I think
Interesting.
I think Pat Freiermuth will be the number one guy in Pittsburgh. Yeah, DK's good, but I feel like he won't be in the game half the time. I feel like he'll be like ejected for taunting or something like that. But Pat Freiermuth is just a great tight end. I mean, I think he'll just be. I feel like Aaron Rodgers was definitely like targeting a big tight end who can get open and is quick like Pat Freiermuth is, in my opinion.
Yeah. We talked a lot about early round running backs, and that's where they generally shine. The early round running backs are. But wide receivers are a much different story. We just finished talking about DK Metcalf, Mike Evans at that 45 area. You can get Marvin Harrison there. That's round 4, round 5. You go even further back into this draft, just based on the ESPN rankings, you can find guys in the 7th, 8th round that are going to be huge contributors on your team. Jakobi Meyers, we talked about him earlier on the show, wide receiver 36 at pick 74. Chris Olave, who's wide receiver 1 on a team, going at pick 75. Matthew Golden, also a wide receiver 1. You have plenty of options down in the 70s, 80s. If you're looking at really targeting wide receivers in that middle kind of round, what are these guys that you're going at as steals in the draft, and who are some guys that you're avoiding, Mehrob?
I mean, a couple guys that I'm definitely going for. I mean, should I say that name? No, I probably shouldn't. Let me not say that one that first came to my head just to save it. But because I have a guy here that I'm going to be. But I mean, a guy like a Marvin Harrison Jr. is a guy that I definitely like. Outside of that, I mean, you have Devontae Smith in Philadelphia is a great reliable asset over there. Keon Coleman out of Buffalo. There's a lot of young receivers in Buffalo that I feel like there's no clear wide receiver one. Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman's another good one, like I mentioned. I mean, of course you got Tyreek Hill down in Miami, even though that's going to be probably a higher round, a 3rd round pick. When you look across the board, I feel like I said, this is a deeper draft board than what first meets the eye. Roma Dunze, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore. There's a bunch of Panthers, Teria McMillan. Across the board, there's a lot. This is a deep draft board, and there's a lot of young players that you're gonna be able to draft in the later rounds for sure.
Yeah, we do have a question in the chat from James. He asked if it's a bad strategy to draft elite quarterbacks in rounds 2 and 3 to facilitate a running back trade where many of the top running backs are off the board due to keepers in a 10-team league. I don't think so. I don't think so at all. It depends a lot on, of course, your roster there, James, but there are a lot of different reasons to get a quarterback. Like I was saying in our quarterback segment earlier, you get a Josh Allen, you get a Lamar Jackson. That's, you're always viable for 40 points any given week kind of thing. So I definitely think it's worth it over there. Good to hear from you, man. It's been a while. But outside of that, getting back to the wide receivers here, and really, I guess, just the pass catchers in general, if we want to move a little bit towards tight ends or maybe some of these guys in the later rounds, there are fallers. Of course, Brandon Ayuk dealing with injuries. Terry McLaurin should shoot up boards now that he's signed, but he was falling earlier. Pass catchers, running backs, just anybody in general, Mehrob, what are your thoughts on taking a swing on a guy that's not going to be there early on in the season, maybe gets you some IR spots?
I mean, he's not going to be on IR, but the first guy that comes to my mind when you say that is Rashee Rice in Kansas City. He's suspended right now, but I mean, when Rashee Rice was playing with Patrick Mahomes, he was a number 1 receiver over there, and he's probably Mahomes' favorite threat. When he comes back, I think that we're not going to see that Chiefs offense in full-fledged for the first 6 to 8 weeks, and that's a big reason why I don't think they're going to win the AFC West. Now, I know that's a little bit of a hot take, and I know there's probably going to be some pushback, but I personally just don't know how good that team is going to be, and Rashee Rice is definitely the first standout name that comes to my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with you in some points there. To be honest, for me, it's with everything still going on, I'm more of a fade on Rashee Rice. I don't really want to have a wide receiver, especially when you're targeting and expecting, not necessarily expecting with everything that's going on, but last year he did very well. Now we don't even know the exact games he's going to be out. It's a sticky situation. Personally, I don't really want to be involved in something like that. Honestly, for me, somebody who I took, who now we actually got some pretty bad news today. In one of my drafts, Mixon had fallen all the way to the 12th round. And at this point, I was just like, you know what? Let's stash a Mixon, see what happens. Obviously, some news came out today, guaranteed, to be out the first 4 weeks. So that's a little bit disappointing for that team. But I mean, really, when you're looking at someone like Mixon, he really did well and averaged, I think he was like the 8th highest average in PPR scoring last year. Obviously, there was some time and some injury and things like that, but he had a really great stretch. So I was hoping that, we could have some value later in the season there. Obviously, wasn't expecting him to hit the ground running after sitting the complete preseason, and now he'll just get a little bit extra rest. Not sure what to do with this information now and when exactly he will be coming into play. But that's one of my sleepers. If you can find him, not necessarily a sleeper, but if he's fallen to like the 12th, 13th round, I mean, could be a value down the line.
Yeah, no, that's kind of a situation where you got to take a guy like that in the 12th round. But I agree. I generally avoid guys that I know are going to miss any amount of time because best ability is availability. I don't want a guy that's going to be injured for God knows how long or suspended for God knows how long. We do have another question from the chat from Caleb. Who's your favorite sneaky wide receiver pick? My favorite one, and I'm shocked how far down he is, and I don't know if it's a super sneaky pick, really. It's not like we're going way down to your rookie wide receivers that nobody's heard of, but I'm going with George Pickens. I feel like he's getting a little bit underrated here. That move to Dallas is going to do wonders for both him and CeeDee Lamb. He gets a massive upgrade at quarterback with Dak Prescott, and him going at wide receiver 31, pick 60 at the ESPN rankings. I think that's an absolute steal right there.
I could see. I feel like no one's talking about Cooper Kupp at all. I mean, yeah, he got traded and he has a lesser talented quarterback in Sam Darnold. But I feel like every draft that I've been in, which is only 2 drafts, he's fallen to like the 9th, 10th round each time. It's very surprising. He's still just as, right, Mehrob? It's the exact same reaction I had. But I mean, he's still like just as elite as he was last year. He's just on a new team with a lesser, but just not as good as quarterback as Matt Stafford. He's still fast. He's still an amazing route runner, and his hands are still just as good as they were last year. I mean, he's still just elite, and I'm just surprised people think that this because he's now in Seattle competing with JSN, he's gonna be a worse receiver. Just not true. He's just gonna get less receptions, but he'll still be just as talented as he was.
I can see where you're coming from a little bit. I'm a little bit lower on Cooper Kupp than I think some people are, just not only because of the situation he's in, the quarterback downgrade that he gets, but also just because he's a little bit older at this point, and I think it's clearly taken a toll on him. You shouldn't. I mean, the real reason people love Cooper Kupp so much, want to draft him, is because of his Offensive Player of the Year, Triple Crown, Super Bowl MVP winning 2021. But that's 4 years ago at this point, right? It's going to be 5 years by the end of this season. And I don't think Cooper Kupp really has that in his game anymore. It'd be nice if he had a resurgent season, and you get him at some real good value right now. But that's the kind of guy that I think veterans, him, Stephon Diggs, I'm kind of fading a little bit, although Stephon Diggs, I'd snatch up a lot quicker than I would Cooper Kupp, depending on my situation. But those are some guys that I don't really love too much because you never really know what's going to happen with these veteran wide receivers.
I can agree with that. I mean, that's really 2 situations that we just don't know how they're going to play out until we see it actually come to light in these next few weeks. I mean, for me, I don't know if you guys can agree, for a sleeper pick going at around like wide receiver 45 to 55 is a Josh Downs. And that may be a little bit interesting, and we don't know what exactly the situation is looking like. I mean, well, we do, but for that offense in general, I mean, it is a messy offense to be in. But for that bench to maybe flex player that you could be getting, he averaged 13.1 PPR points per game last season. Sleeper for me. If he's on the board in those very later rounds, I could be snagging up a Josh Downs.
Yeah, Josh Downs is an interesting one because he very much is a deep threat kind of guy. And when you have Anthony Richardson throwing you the ball, you're going to get an opportunity or two every single game. But Daniel Jones is a little bit of a different story. He's always been a little timid, and I don't necessarily blame him for going deep because the Giants' offensive line would have traumatized me too if I had to do that as a quarterback, right? That's just not the greatest situation to be in. He's behind a better offensive line now with the Colts, so we might see him air it out more, but I don't think he's really in that mindset or in a super safe position where he's going to air it out too much. But Josh Downs always good for a big player too. I love taking a flyer on those boomer bust guys, and he's one of the better boomer bust guys this year in this year's fantasy football year. Another question from James in the chat. He says he's picking 7th in a 10-team PPR team league. He expects there to be a bunch of different guys you might expect: Nico Collins, Amon-Ra, Puka, Drake London, Ashton Genty, Derrick Henry, CMC. Which one of those guys are you taking? I know I'm leaning a little bit more towards Puka because I think he's got wide receiver 1 overall upside. But I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are. We'll go around the room here.
Puka's an interesting one, because I feel like we've seen how great he can be. The problem is he's always injured. He's gotten injured every single year. Now, if he can stay healthy and we can actually see a full body of work in a season, we might actually be able to see how good this guy is and how consistent he can be. But in terms of flashes, in terms of how good he can be, I mean, we've seen multi-touchdown games. This is a guy that when he's healthy, he can easily go over 50. He had 1,400 yards last year, played 105 receptions, had 6 touchdowns. I mean, I'm expecting him to go well over that 6 touchdown mark. That was 2023 with the Rams. I expect him to be able to clear that mark, and I really think he's a low first-round pick to high second-round pick for sure, no doubt about it.
I mean, I may be in a little bit of an opposite boat than you, Rob, honestly, because when you look at adding somebody like Devontae into your team, I know he's a bit of an older guy, but he is also one of those guys who you target in the red zone. And I know you mentioned some of the 2023 stats. Last year, Puka in the regular season only had 3 touchdowns. And where somebody has a Devontae Adams where he's targeted in that red zone, I think it's a little bit more tough to justify a Puka for me personally. Although he's a great athlete, he makes some unbelievable catches. I think he also has some of that injury risk. I mean, if he can score more touchdowns, clear cut, absolutely, I would say so. For me, I mean, depending on what strategy you're going for, I would be more looking at that Nico, London. Those are my 2 picks, honestly, in that spot.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say Nico Collins. I think Nico, he's going to be, obviously, he was injured last year, but the first game back, he drops like 25 points, and he just consistently stayed above 10 points for the rest of the season, getting very few, honestly, just like targets and receptions. And this year, him coming back from injury and C.J. Stroud having a fully healthy offense, besides Joe Mixon, he's going to target him a lot. I mean, he saw how good Nico Collins. We all saw how good he was last year when he was healthy, and he's only going to just keep playing just as good as he was last year with an improved, hopefully, C.J. Stroud. So, yeah, I think Nico Collins will be your best bet. I think he's just too good of a receiver to pass by.
I do want to hit the tight ends a little bit because we're getting a little bit towards the end of our broadcast, and my big question with the tight ends is where do you take them? Because there's always that giant gap between your top tight ends and your pedestrian tight ends. And even then, there's an even further drop-off to your bad tight ends. This year in that top tier, I think the consensus 3 guys are going to be, Brock Bowers. You're going to have Trey McBride, and George Kittle is staying up there. Those are the 3 guys. Then you have a bit of a drop-off. And that's where you run into your high upside guys like a Kyle Pitts. always a really interesting one because Kyle Pitts, it's always his year, right? He's just like the Cowboys. It's always going to be his year. We've heard quotes coming out of training camp. I think it's become a little bit of an inside joke at some point within the NFL circles as well. But is it his year this year? Because I am ready to buy into the Kyle Pitts hype if you can get him in 10th round kind of situation.
Kyle Pitts is the first round tight end.
Right.
Should
Drafted at
not
101,
be
of
gone.
course.
Well, if Kyle Pitts is not drafted at 101, dismantle your league. Is it his year? Loki could be his year. Michael Penix has been targeting him a lot in training camp from sources that I've been hearing about and reading about, and I really think that Kyle Pitts could definitely have one of his best years. I mean, he's the highest recruited tight end of all time, and we're making jokes about him falling to the 10th round, which is still just insane to me. Get this generational talent in Kyle Pitts, and I mean, you just never had a quarterback or a competent offensive coordinator to use that generational tight end, and now you do. You have a good quarterback, an older quarterback, but a good one, and a better head coach since OC that's going to actually target him and get him reps. And I think this is actually, it's crazy to say, it might be his year. Someone took him in the 11th round, and thought it was just so funny that Kyle Pitts, first round player, a good second in the 11th round. He might be the person who took him. He's starting him, so it really might be his year. I really think it will be.
Yeah, there's lots of ways. I'm big on him, but there's also a couple big rookie tight ends that went this season. Colston Loveland and Tyler Warren, two guys that are climbing up boards. We've seen rookie tight ends have really good seasons now 2 years in a row. Sam Laporta, of course, had that breakout year where he was the tight end 1 overall, took a little bit of a step back. Brock Bowers, of course, last season, tight end number 1 overall, arguably should have been rookie of the year. Doesn't matter, breaking records. Brock Bowers was. What do you make of these guys? Colston Loveland, of course, in that same system that Sam Laporta was in. There's lots of hype around him. We have a really good safety option and a Swiss Army knife in Tyler Warren with the Colts. These are guys that could really rack up some solid points for tight ends. Where do you see them finishing among their peers?
I would be one of the type of guys who, I know you both had mentioned that you are high on Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts is, for me, staying in the fade category. It may be his year, and I'm glad to miss his year to see change. But I'm not going to touch Kyle Pitts with a 10-foot pole personally. I would much rather take a guy like Tyler Warren. He is my favorite late round tight end. I would say him and Engram are the two tight ends that I'm targeting towards those later rounds. But to me, Tyler Warren just provides some value as we mentioned, that Colts offense is a bit shaky. They're very shaky. So having a stud tight end like that could warrant Warren a lot of targets.
I personally like Kyle Pitts. I mean, we talked about it earlier. I think Michael Penix likes him, and I think he's an interesting tight end to have. A tight end that a lot of people aren't talking about, though, how about George Kittle with the San Francisco 49ers? What happened to him? He was a top tight end for the last few years. He's a guy in that Brock Purdy always kind of – he doesn't not throw the ball to him, but I feel like he hasn't been throwing to him in the last couple of years as much. And his usage is kind of plummeted a little bit. So I'm looking at Kittle to kind of resurge his career a little bit if he can stay healthy. Other than that, I mean, a guy in Dalton Kincaid in Buffalo, Josh Allen loves Kincaid. He was one of his top receivers in Buffalo, especially in the red zone. He loves using Kincaid as a big body receiver, sometimes as a block, sometimes as one of those side out kind of guys you can use to bluff off a defender if he's going to run for the end zone to take off. Sometimes he just runs a little pitch over to Kincaid. I mean, those are two guys that come to mind in terms of sleepers for sure.
Yeah, George Kittle's a really interesting one because he's kind of a guy that's hanging on to that top elite tier of tight ends with your Brock Bowers, with your Trey McBride, but he does it in a way that is just frustrating because, like you said, there's games where he will get 0 points. He won't get targeted. He won't touch the ball, but it all averages out because then he'll have 2 or 3 games a season where he'll go for 25, 30 points. There is a lot to like about George Kittle, but if you're looking for consistency, That is not a word that George Kittle and that 49ers, with him on the 49ers, really knows, because there's certain game plans where he's just there to block because he's very good at that. He's probably the best all-around tight end in the game right now, but sometimes the game plan just doesn't call for him to do that. A guy that was up there for a while, Travis Kelce. He's another interesting one. He had by far his worst season last year. He's back after thoughts of retirement after the Super Bowl loss last year. He's going to play out his contract. How are you treating him? Because when he's on the field and when he's really trying, when he's putting in that work in an important game, you see what he does. He has that ability to go back 5 years and be that Travis Kelce from the past, but he hasn't had the ability, especially last season, to do it for all 17 games of the regular season. Do you trust him to be able to be your starting tight end, especially at the price that's going to take to get a guy like Kelce in the 5th round, probably?
It's a crazy one, but I mean, you can't be going for that. I think this is Kelce's last year in the NFL. I think he retires after this one. Jason Kelce retired last year. I think this is Travis's last year. I mean, based off of last year's numbers, I mean, unless he has a crazy, shocking uptick back to his normal self or close to it, just call it a career. He's a Hall of Famer. He's one of the best tight ends in the game. But, I mean, his age has gotten to him. And, I mean, you can just look. He doesn't have the same size. He doesn't have the weight to him. He doesn't have the power that he used to have. Just all around. It just feels like his chemistry with Patrick Mahomes has even kind of gotten a lot weaker, at least from what we saw last year. So, I'm a guy that traded for Travis Kelce last year, so I'm a guy that had to deal with all that nonsense, so I know. But Kelce is a guy that I don't want to touch with a 10-foot pole. I would rather take Kyle Pitts over Travis Kelce this year.
Yeah, I understand. I understand the hesitation there, Ryan, and I'll let you finish up your thoughts in a second. But he is definitely a guy that's hard to pass up when he's staring at you in the face, and you can get him. Travis Kelce in one of those later rounds, a guy that would have been tight end 1 a couple years ago.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say really quick that, yeah, from 2016 to 2022, he was the tight end 1 like 6 out of those 7 years. And I think he's just a bit past his prime now, that there are other guys that have a little bit more upside to him. As you said, he debated retirement. I don't know how much gas he has in him this year, and if he can pick it up from last year. I mean, I don't know. You have a lot of options there. If you want to trust a guy like Kelce, who's historically done it, but more recently fallen off a bit, be my guest. That just won't be me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm always a guy that likes to get a tight end later on in drafts. I just like a guy that gets me 10 points. Guys like, Jake Ferguson, who had a little bit of a down year last year, who can still be serviceable. You brought up Evan Ingram. Mark Andrews might fall into that group this year because we don't know what's going to happen with him and Isaiah Likely. Now, Likely's dealing with a little bit of an injury, but how comfortable are you with rocking with Mark Andrews, who was very, very touchdown dependent last season?
Bills game, people are definitely going to have some questions about whether or not they should draft him after that overtime loss because he dropped that ball on that 1-yard line end zone area. I mean, questioning, his ability to actually play tight end. He's still a phenomenal tight end, though. He is getting a little older, and like you said, he is touchdown dependent. He doesn't really get a lot of receptions, especially with that tight, like just that well-rounded offense. Say Flowers, Derrick Henry, Justice Hill. I mean, they have a great offense that doesn't really need a receiving tight end. Mark Andrews is that blocking type of guy. But he is, years ago, I'd say absolutely. Those guys, bro. Low key, yeah. But, yeah, I mean, he's still a great tight end. He is touchdown dependent, but he still gets you a few points a game just off catches. And he'll score every other week about. So if you wanted to start him every other week, you'll probably get like 10 points out of him. But I just don't think he's worth, reaching for it all. I think if he falls to you in 10th, 11th round, yeah, but I honestly wouldn't even take him in the draft. Maybe even free agencies, maybe even a stretch.
Let's go around the room here, and then we'll finish off with rookies. Give me your final thoughts here on tight end, boys.
I mean, I just think there's better options out there. Jake Ferguson in Dallas. Dallas Goddard with the Eagles. I mentioned Hawkinson earlier, Tyler Warren with the Colts, Freiermuth with the Steelers. There's better options out there than a Mark Andrews. So if you have an opportunity in like the 8th, 9th round, go snag a tight end. Do not wait. And if you wait, just don't take Mark Andrews. There are better options than Mark Andrews.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with Rob on that Mark Andrews train. I mean, averaging 11, just over 11 points per game in PPR last season. Not necessarily something I want to be targeting, although he still finishes tight end 6. Really not for me, as we saw the regression a bit. So I'm gonna be going for more of those guys like Warren, or if the team and situation permits, early on a McBride or a Bowers, but fading Andrews.
Better than targeting is Kyle Pitts. I will trade for Kyle Pitts. But realistically, nah. Like Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren, I mean, either of those guys are go-to guys. We know how good Tyler Warren was at Penn State, and with especially this new mastermind of that head coach they have in Ben Johnson, they are going to just be so much better on the offensive side of the ball. And Tyler Warren is honestly a top 3 tight end, in my opinion, in this year's draft. Colston Loveland Tyler Warren. Let's say Colston Loveland with the Bears. Sorry, and Tyler Warren with the Colts. I mean, yeah, you either have Anthony Richardson throwing a 60-yard bomb, or Daniel Jones giving you a nice little tight end pop route, or like a nice little slant or mesh. And Tyler Warren's quick. He's big. He's quick, and he can get you good yards. After he's not going to get he actually can. He can get you about another 10, 15 yards after the catch. It's what he's known for. It's what he's good at. Yeah, either Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren are just my go-to guys. But Kyle Pitts is still my number 1 tight end. It's his year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Colston Loveland is the one to target if you're looking for the rookie tight ends. I think that the system that Ben Johnson uses loves those tight ends, and I'm all in on Loveland for his ability to block, catch, and really just be an all-around great tight end, kind of like a George Kittle kind of build. But I did tease we were going to get to rookies here, and we kind of skipped over it at wide receivers especially. We had a question from James again in the chat about 2 rookie wide receivers, Dante Thornton Jr. and Jaden Higgins. These 2 guys who have made some noise maybe in the later rounds, but you also have guys like Emeka Egbuka that we didn't talk about that I think is going to be a steal, especially at where he's going with the injuries to a guy like Chris Godwin. Where are these rookies that are going to pop out? Who are your rookies that you're targeting mid to late rounds to be your big difference makers late in the season?
I mean, Egbuka has a great opportunity here, and I mean, it is talked about, but I don't know if it is talked about enough. As we saw last season, obviously, Mike Evans had some of that hamstring injury. He is getting a little bit older, so we just don't want that to happen again, obviously, for his sake. Obviously, Godwin out, and even McMillan has some injuries going on now. Egbuka could explode this year. I mean, he's really valuable where he's going. So he would definitely be somebody to target. Now, for Thornton, I really don't know what is happening in this offense for the wide receivers at the moment. Everything's all up in the air, especially with, some news today. And we can still target him. And, I mean, he could be of value. It just really depends what's happening with the other wide receivers in that room, how they're looking. But he's a big guy and would be of value to have on the offense.
Yeah. I'm going to switch to talk about running backs. I think that I wouldn't really call this guy a steal, but Amari Hampton, I mean, he's going to possibly be the Chargers' number 1 guy, depending if Najee Harris can see or not. But my other guy, if he plays, which I hope he does, John Junkins for the Browns. Obviously, he had that dispute, but he got proven, innocent, so he did get picked up by the Browns, and I think he could be a legit running back 1 for the Browns. They really don't have much going on in that running back room. They just traded Nick Chubb, and their other running backs are just not nearly as good as Quinton Junkins is. And I think with, in my opinion, the really good O-line that the Browns have, I think that he can make some very serious. I think he'd be a really good player for the Browns and for good fantasy player overall.
Yeah. Lots to love with the rookies this year. We're going to end off our show here with just one final question. Go around the room one more time. I want you to name a player that you will not leave a draft without and a player that you're not going to leave a draft with. I'll start with you, Nolan, on this one. We'll go reverse order. Just who's your favorite and least favorite player in the fantasy season right now?
Favorite, I don't care what I say. Chuba Hubbard. I mean, I just think he's so reliable. Obviously, he's not, your number one guy, but I love Chuba. He gave me so many points last year. I'm expecting a lot out of him again this year. And who I can leave without breaking a sweat. I'll say, honestly, I'll say Ramondre Stevenson. Obviously, we talked about him earlier, but, he's older. Obviously, brought up a lot of the fumbling issues. And with a guy like Trey Hendrickson coming in, he's probably going to take a spot by probably like week 6 or 7. I can live without him.
I'd probably take spoiler, Ryan, you probably already know this, but I'm going first round with Derrick Henry. I'm taking him first round. He's locked in 100%. So yeah, I'm leaving the draft with him, and there's no doubt about it. Unless somebody wants to take him in the top 5, you're more than welcome to, and give me a top 5, one of those top 5 gauntlet guys. But I'll be taking Derrick Henry in the first round at the number 6 pick. Outside of that, a guy that I will not be taking and will not sweat about, Cam Scatterbo. You're welcome to hit the streets, whoever would like to draft him. I will not be taking him, so that is my guy that a lot of people kind of are fluctuating high and low on. I'm just a little bit lower on him.
Yeah, I mean, hey, now that you told me that, I may have to draft Derrick Henry in the 3rd overall pick. We'll see. I'll let you have him. No, for me, somebody who I'm absolutely leaving on the draft board, I'm not going to be touching Laporta personally. Too many weapons in that offense, and he had a bit of a disappointing season last season. I just don't want to be touching Laporta this year. Somebody who, if he falls to me and I do have the opportunity, I mean, I know we talked about it a bit earlier, and he doesn't have a guaranteed position, but if Jordan Mason's there in these later rounds, I'm going to take him because I truly believe that he's going to be taking over the running back 1 position and will provide value where you can get him.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm kind of on the same lines as you for the guy that I'm trying to walk out of every single draft with, and that's Ollie Gordon. I kind of touched on him a little bit in the running back section here, but outside of Achane, they don't have a running back, really. Jalen Wright's there, but who really cares? Gordon's going to get the goal line work in Miami because he's the only back that can do short yardage. He's a guy that I absolutely love at the end of drafts. He's not going to shoot up the board. He's not going to get like 10, 20 carries a game, but as a handcuff and as a guy that you could just get a couple touchdowns out of, he's someone that I absolutely love taking a shot on. And honestly, I'm not touching CJ Stroud. As good of a quarterback as I think he is, that offensive line situation is too bad. He could break the record for most times sacked in a season. Very infamous club with David Carr over there. Not where you really want to be in the annals of Texans history, but I think there's a real chance with how bad that offensive line is that they are not going to have anything going offensively. So I'm not touching that quarterback situation. But thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in to the Triple Threat Show's Fantasy Football Extravaganza. We have been your hosts, Jeremy Lapidus, Mehrob Fatemi, Nolan Jambor, and Ryan Burns. Thank you so much for sticking with us. You can check us out everywhere you get your podcasts. That is Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you can listen. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on TikTok, YouTube, everywhere. We're all over the internet. Give us a follow. We appreciate all of you guys sticking around. We'll be back on Wednesday. We'll be talking college football, lots of stuff from week 0, big upsets, game-winning field goals as time expires, lots of big news. We'll continue to preview the NFL. We have one more division to get through and much more. We'll see you then. Have a good one.